I don't want to bring up the whole issue of guns and gun insurance because I did that to death. But there was one takeaway point that was worth visiting. Number one, somebody on Twitter told me, and I need a confirmation of this, that the state of Massachusetts is actually debating that right now, debating the question of insurance and guns. I don't know what that looks like, but I'll just put into your head the idea that at least some stranger on Twitter thinks that at least one state is debating at least some form of insurance and guns. So I don't know what that looks like, but I'd like to know. But here's my takeaway. So people said, and one of them was a lawyer, so I'm going to take it seriously, that it would never be constitutionally appropriate to force people to pay for insurance for a constitutional right, which is to own a gun. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so that statement, I can't even evaluate if that sounds reasonable or not. But it doesn't matter to my next point. Imagine if the model was this. Instead of making the gun buyer buy insurance directly through an insurance company, suppose the government said this: we'd like to impose on gun makers, just the manufacturers, a requirement for insurance, such that if one of their guns, and let's say you could limit it to maybe the ones that are the most destructive, so maybe you would make exceptions for shotguns, for example, or a revolver. So you might have some exceptions of what the price would be for the insurance. But for the weapons that are, let's say, generally agreed to be the most dangerous, let's say the gun makers were forced to pay a healthy insurance policy, and that insurance would pay the emergency services and healthcare for anywhere where one of their guns was used for a crime. Now, the first thing you might say to yourself is, hey, don't do that, it's a bad idea. So the question, I'm not going to deal with the question of whether it's a good or bad idea. That's a separate conversation. I'm going to ask specifically, would that model in which the gun manufacturers were required to have insurance on their own product, would it be unconstitutional? Would it ever be unconstitutional to force a manufacturer to cover insurance for a product that is constitutionally valid? So, because here's the thing, you're the consumer and you walk into the store and you buy a gun. That gun has all kinds of costs passed along to you from the manufacturer. The insurance cost would just be one more. It would just be one more cost. It doesn't feel like that would be unconstitutional. So I'm seeing mixed agreements or mixed opinions here. So some of you are saying it would be. Well, let me ask you this. Would it be unconstitutional for the government to require gun sellers to collect sales tax at the point of purchase? Is it unconstitutional to require a sales tax on a constitutional right to own a gun? Yeah, that threw you, didn't it? Because there is a sales tax on guns, right? And if there's a sales tax on guns, the government is already imposing limits on your ability to buy something that's a constitutional right. Now, I remind anybody who's new to my periscopes, I'm strongly pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment, but I'm also willing to at least consider all of the different angles on guns. So my willingness to consider all angles should not be misconstrued as wanting to take your gun, because that's the last thing I want to do. All right? So that's the question. It seems to me if it's legal and constitutional to collect a sales tax on guns, it should be at least as legal to require the companies to have their own insurance simply to cover the costs that they have some role in creating through society. I don't think it'll ever become a law, but who knows?